So now, the Quraysh is mobilizing, they're leaving from Mecca, they're coming to Medina. They will get there within days. How did the Muslims find out? The Prophet had instructed Muslims, by the way, to always be on the lookout, to gather information, to monitor the movement of the enemy. If they see anything suspicious, they would come and report to the Prophet. When Quraysh left Mecca, they went to Medina. A group of Khuza'a. Khuza'a was a very important tribe between Mecca and Medina. A group of Khuza'a, they came to the Prophet and they informed him of the plot. Basically, Khuza'a was a very important tribe in Arabia. And for about 3 centuries, they were the custodians of Masjid al-Haram, of the Kaaba. Later, Quraysh took that from them, and they became the custodians. So Khuza'a, they had made a treaty with Abdul Muttalib. This is before Islam. They had made a treaty with Abdul Muttalib that will stand with you, will stand with Bani Hashim. So because of that alliance, they felt obligated to come and tell the Prophet ﷺ, look, all of Quraysh, they're coming with all these tribes to fight you. So they tipped him off. They informed the Prophet ﷺ. At the same time, we have hadiths that Jibreel came down on the Prophet and he told him, Ya Rasulullah, they're mobilizing a massive army. All these tribes are descending on Medina. So Khuza'a informed the Prophet, and also Allah confirmed it to the Prophet ﷺ. Okay. What did the Prophet do after knowing of this plot? He immediately formed a council to consult the companions. What do we do? They already had the bitter experience of Uhud. The Prophet told them, let's stay in Medina, let's not go. We could be defeated. They said, no, let's go out to the mountain of Uhud and fight the enemy there. That was not the Prophet's choice. He recommended that they would stay inside Medina. They could better ward off the enemy. So now that the companions realized that in the past they didn't take the Prophet's word, they were regretful. They're like, okay, let's see what you also tell us. Some said, let's stay inside Medina. Let's not go out. Let's fortify our towers, have our archmen, and when the enemies, they come to Medina, let's just try to kill them as they enter. This was the suggestion of the Prophet at Uhud, when Uhud happened. But the Prophet and some companions said, no, right now this is not appropriate. Why? There are too many. They are just too many. According to some estimates, the Muslims, year 4 or 5 of the Hijrah, were 3,000. You have 4,000 people just descending on Medina. If you stay inside the city, eventually they'll overwhelm you. They'll enter, they'll raid the city, and that's it. So the Prophet says, no, we have to leave the city and come up with a strategy. So we don't let them enter Medina. If they enter Medina, that's it. We're going to lose the battle. So the Prophet ﷺ is consulting them. Salman al-Muhammadi or Salman al-Farisi comes with a suggestion. Salman says, Ya Rasulullah, when we were in Persia, because he's Persian, he lived in Persia all his life before coming to see the Prophet and before he became a Muslim. He told the Prophet, in Persia, when a similar situation would happen, you know what kind of tactic we would use? We would dig a deep trench hole in the ground, and basically we'd dig the trench around the city. The enemy, they just can't enter. They don't have a logistical way to enter with their horses, and then we'll shoot them. That was our tactic. The companions loved this. And the Prophet said, yes, this is exactly what we'll do. Some other ahadith indicate the Prophet gave the suggestion first. He said, let's dig a trench. Salman confirmed it. He's like, yes, this works as a strategy because in Persia, that's what we would do, and it would work. It would ward off the enemy. So all the companions loved this. They're like, perfect. Now we have a strategy. Let's go dig a trench around the city so we stop them from entering. But this is going to be a lot of hard work. You don't have these bulldozing machines back then, these big shovels, right? It's all manual. Okay. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, let's leave the city. He left the city, and a number of his companions from the Muhajirin and the Ansar, they followed him. And he basically went to the mountain of Sal'a, which is known in Medina, and that's where the trench started. The Prophet says, let us dig the trench from here to an area called Ratij. In any case, the reports indicate that at the foot of this mountain in Medina, the mountain of Sala' or Sal', that's where the trench would be dug. Now, this wasn't just the plan to have a trench, but the plan was also to have sentry posts, where basically you have soldiers stationed over there, and they would act as defense. If one of the enemy manages to come, he manages to pass the trench, we can kill them immediately. So it was a very, very solid plan to ward off the enemy. So now from Uhud, from the Uhud area, all the way to Ratij, that's where they decided to have the trench. And in order to maintain good order, they decided that every 40 cubits, dhira', basically a cubit is 1 point something feet, it's about 60 feet. That every 60 feet, you entrust it to 10 men. This is how the Prophet divided the work. Now we're going to make this ditch, right? So every 60 feet, have 10 men work on it. The Prophet himself, he started the groundbreaking ceremony, if we can call it. He started first. He struck the first pick on the ground, and he began to dig the earth himself. Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, he was busy extracting the clay from the ground. So the Prophet would dig, he'd remove the soil in order to make that big trench. The face and the forehead of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sweating because he was engaging in physical labor. The Prophet was going through fatigue trying to dig all that, but he's doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now the Prophet, as he was digging, historians note that he would recite these beautiful lines of poetry. Allahumma inna al-aisha aishul akhirah faghfir lil ansari wal muhajira. Basically, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would say, the real life is the life of the akhirah, not this dunya. Oh Allah, forgive the muhajirs and the ansar for participating in this very important event. So the Prophet asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive his companions who were there participating and giving from their time and energy. The companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when they saw him working and he'd carry the soil on his back or on his shoulder, then he'd dig, then he had to go and rest for a little bit, right? Remember, the Prophet here is 50 something years old, 57, maybe 58 years old. So you get tired by digging all that much. When they saw the Prophet getting tired, they told him, Ya Rasulullah, stop, nahnu nakfik. We'll do it on your behalf. You don't have to do it. The Prophet says, no, I want to be a participant in this, and I want to partake in the ajr. You see the leadership qualities of the Prophet ﷺ were really amazing. That's how a true leader should be. You participate yourself. It shows your sincerity. It shows your conviction. It shows your humbleness too. Such leadership is what saved Muslims. When you see Rasulullah, the grand prophet, the great prophet of Allah, before you digging, the dust collecting on him, imagine how much that motivates you. Imagine how much energy that gives you to see the Prophet endure hardship before you. So because the Prophet participated himself, he really motivated so many of his companions to come and participate, to the point where some historians have noted that some Jews from Banu Qurayza at Khaybar, who still had the treaty with the Prophet, they helped by sending some tools or instruments, maybe shovels or something like that, because they were still under a pact. But soon later, these same Jews of Khaybar, they broke the pact. And they tried to kill the Muslims. So the Prophet ﷺ was able to mobilize all those companions to dig the trench when he himself started to dig. That left an amazing spiritual impact on them.
did he have that much people as much as they did?
All Muslims were 3,000. All Muslims at the time, including women and children.
How did they get? Or they weren't Muslims.
They were much less. No, the enemies were 4,000.
Right.
The Muslims were much less than that. They were much. The men who were actually out there, and remember the munafiqeen also didn't join, those who were in Medina. So they were outnumbered. That's why the Prophet and Salman, they liked the suggestion. They're like, look, if we want to face them combat one to one, no, there's no chance. We're greatly outnumbered by them. All these Arab tribes, all these Jews, all their swordsmen, we have no chance. So let's dig a trench. That's our strategy. Despite our small numbers, we have a path to victory. And that's what happened. We shall see later, inshallah, how this unfolded. Now, when the digging would become difficult, sometimes you have like a big rock. And you know, Arabia is rugged terrain in that area. So sometimes you'll be digging that trench and you'll come across a big boulder, rock. When they couldn't dig it, the Prophet had to help. The Prophet would take his shovel or the axe or whatever it is. He would strike the stone. With the power of Allah, it would split open. Many miracles were seen at the Battle of Khandaq. Inshallah, we'll see them in our subsequent sessions. One of them was this. You're digging, you come across a big rock. You can't move it, you can't carry it, it's too heavy. You can't break it up. Ya Rasulullah, help out. The Prophet would come, he'd hold his axe or the shovel, he'd strike it, it would split open. It would just scatter into pieces by the barakah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the most people who helped the Prophet on that day were Imam Ali alayhi salam. On those days were Imam Ali and his supporters, the Shia of Imam Ali alayhi salam. They were really committed to digging this trench. Now, how long was this trench? We have several estimates over here. One estimate states about 12,000 dhira' cubits, whereas some say maybe about 5,000 cubits. It was maybe 1 to 3 miles long. Actually 5,000 dhira' is more than a mile. Maybe 2 to 4 miles long, let's say. That's a lot. A huge trench that big around the city, 2 to 4 miles, that's a lot. Remember, Medina was a small city. It wasn't that big of a city like those metro areas today. No, it was a small city. All the citizens of Medina were what? 3,000. So it was not a big city. How wide was the trench? Any guesses? Any ideas? How wide was it? So we know how long was it, like from here to here, 2 to 4 miles. But how wide was it? It was 9 cubits. 9 cubits, let's say 15 feet. That's a lot. 15 feet. That's a big trench. So imagine 2 to 4 miles of a 15 feet ditch. Imagine how much work they had to do to dig this. And how deep was it? About 10 feet. That's huge. Imagine a hole in the ground that's 15 feet wide, 10 feet deep, and it's going for 2 to 4 miles. So this was a big achievement, for them to do at that time. You don't have any machines, you don't have any bulldozing machines, nothing. It's just you and your shovel. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them the energy and the stamina to really continue with this.
How long did it take them to do it?
It took them under 20 days. Some say 10 days, some say 15 days, some say 20 days. Maybe the most accurate estimate is about 15 days.
But weren't they afraid of the other?
They were on their way, they were coming. See, by the time you need to get from Medina to Mecca, from Mecca to Medina with all the tribes, it takes, a few days. It takes 10, 15 days. During those 10, 15 days, they dug the ditch. By the way, the pagans had no clue this was happening. They were shocked when they got to Medina. So 2 to 4 miles around Medina, from the northern edge to the western edge, this was where they were digging. From the southern side, basically you had an area where a massive army could stand there and attack. So they didn't need to dig a trench from all around Medina. They only dug a trench some parts of Medina. Those open fields from Uhud to Ratij, it was an open field where basically they could come and strike with the help of the Jews, because the Jews also lived in the northern side. So with the help, the logistical help of the Jews, they could go from the northern side of Medina in those open fields and make the attack into Medina. That's where the Prophet told them, let's make the trench. It was the vulnerable areas of Medina. But some areas, they were, well fortified. You didn't need a big trench for that. So it's the north and the western areas. As for the eastern and the southern areas, you basically had, a chain of houses and construction that would fortify the city.